Baton Rouge has always been a battlefield, not just for politics or poverty, but for identity, survival, and sound. From the shadows of Louisiana's capital came a pair of young voices known as the Bleedas. True Bleeda, the lyrical prodigy gunned down before his 19th birthday, and RealBleeda, the turned neighborhood figure facing charges that may end his story too soon. In a city already scarred by violence, their music became a war cry. Their name, a warning, their brotherhood, a legacy, both cursed and honored. This is the story about more than hip-hop, about more than rap. It's about blood, betrayal, and what happens when fame comes with a body count. True Bleeda was more than a rapper. He was a brother, a son, and a leader in his rap crew. And he was only 18 years old when his story was cut short. But before the gunfire, there was an insane rap life and a story behind it. In an interview, Bleeda could be quoted as saying, "We grew up in BR, normal kids, but everything's different when you come from the hood. You wonder how your story would turn out somewhere else." He wasn't just raised on the street corners, he carried their weight. In that same interview, Bleeda had this to say about True Bleeda. "He was a good dude. He told me once, I want to go get 25 grand, then come back, fix the whole house." This hit close to home because Bleeda and True Bleeda aren't only rhyme partners, they're actually brothers. By 18, he had big dreams, not just fame, but a future for his family. Later on in that interview, Bleeda details what happened the day that True Bleeda lost his life. He could be quoted in saying, "That morning, he came home from Atlanta, had a show. We woke up, got ready, then we just went looking, trying to find something. Next thing, the shots." It's crazy how it could happen that quick. They were on the road, joking, talking, living life. Then in a heartbeat, it ended. Then he went on to paint the scene. He said that Clifton Lindsay, was behind the wheel. True was behind him. When the shooting started, he hopped out trying to run. I missed him, but he didn't. In that scene, it was targeted shots, no mistakes, and no mercy. A viral video revealed the horror behind the tragic shooting. True Bleeda wasn't alone. Two others, aged 19 and 21, were also in the car and rushed to the hospital with serious injuries. Their lives forever changed.
Police have identified the two people killed in yesterday's drive-by shooting near the Mall of Louisiana, 18-year-old Dante Dorsey and 19-year-old Clifton Lindsay, both from Baton Rouge.
This shooting happened in broad daylight at a busy intersection, not typically associated with gun violence. Instead of chaos, it brought chilling intent, because once again, the local community was wondering why and how this tragic scene played out. The police announced this wasn't random. Witness statements and physical evidence pointed to rival gangs who planned this attack. "We thought it was safe," is what a witness told the local news there in Baton Rouge. "It shouldn't be where you have to witness something like this on a day you're just trying to go shopping." At the time, police revealed that the shooters left behind their bullet-riddled car and fled in another vehicle. No suspects had surfaced, and the investigation is ongoing. With 149 homicides in 2021, 105 in 2022, and over 24% involving vehicles, Baton Rouge faced an epidemic of gun violence far worse than the national averages. Crazy enough, True Bleeda's sole survivor released 3 days before the shooting. His Spotify numbers going up. His top songs over 15K plus streams, signifying a rising star taken too soon. And what's even wilder is, since his passing away, his streams have increased over 300%, which is a common theme that we see in a lot of drill rap music. And outside of the mainstream, his core fans were mourning his loss. Street corner memorials, social media eruptions, and hashtag mourners pleading they took another real one. And for his family, his brother Bleeda carried the news of his dreams unfulfilled. Speaking on the day that True Bleeda lost his life and they both were ambushed, he had this to say: "Everybody else will make it through it, but True, he gone."
Man, I really watch this dude go get $25,000, come back home and really get away, like just get away to the whole house, like they do the kid last year.
One targeted attack, one city shook, one brother left behind. But True Bleeda's story was only the first verse. The exact cause or start of the feud between the Bleedas and the Vultures remains shrouded in mystery. Tangled in a complex web of shifting alliances, betrayals, and neighborhood loyalties, though Reddit detectives and local chatter try to piece together who betrayed who first, the truth is buried beneath years of street politics and fractured trust. What's clear is that 2021 became Baton Rouge's deadliest year on record, with a staggering wave of shootings and killings linked to these two factions. The violence wasn't just statistics, it was lives, families, communities caught in the crossfire. By early 2022, the feud had reached a tipping point with the assassination of key figure True Bleeda, signaling a new level of brutality and personal vendettas. On the morning of April 23, 2021, Marvin Batiste, known on the streets as Zip, was gunned down on Baton Rouge's north side, just days after celebrating his 29th birthday.
Well, a man has died after an early morning shooting on Plank Road. Sheriff's deputies say Marvin Batiste was rushed to the hospital around 3 this morning and later died from his injuries.
Zip wasn't just another name in the news. He was a father of two, a brother, a friend. His murder left a void in his family and his crew, igniting a fierce anger that spilled over into social media cries for vengeance. The city watched as grief mixed with fury, but the violence didn't ease. If anything, it intensified, feeding a vicious cycle that seemed impossible to break. This killing was a devastating marker of how deep the wounds ran in Baton Rouge's streets. And at this point, you had many members of 4K Trey like Herm and fellow members of the Vultures showing their condolences online. Then later that year, tragedy struck again, but this time the victim was someone who didn't belong to any gang. Jamorius Ferguson, also known as Jimmo, was a U.S. Army soldier and a community pillar, founder of nonprofits aimed at helping Louisiana youth escape the streets. Yet on October 8, 2021, he was shot outside of a home in East Baton Rouge, and some say he was a victim of mistaken identity or ruthless street calculations. Though police suspected the shooters were aiming for his brothers, well-known Vulture members V and Jug. Jimmo's death was a harsh reminder that the violence was indiscriminate, tearing through families and communities. He fought for his country and tried to fight for his city, but ultimately became one of its casualties. There's widespread speculation about Jimmo's involvement in the streets. Many different conspiracies showed up online, and a lot of questions were raised like, was he just the brother of two Vulture members? But regardless of any speculation, the ops were seen dissing him and others online. The war took a darker, more public turn on October 25, 2021. Malachi Demeland, aka Ka, a rising figure in the Baton Rouge rap scene, was assassinated in a cold, calculated attack in a hotel parking lot. Known for his musical collaborations with his cousin V, Ka's life had already been shadowed by tragedy, having faced murder charges himself back in 2020. Though the case was dropped in self-defense, his violent past seemed to follow him. Witnesses described a hail of gunfire, possibly from an automatic weapon, underscoring the cold precision of the hit. After his death, the Bleeders mocked Ka, publicly calling him a diamond pack for his flashy grill. The killing sparked rumors that the Bleeders were behind the assassination. Rumors further fueled by a track called Blow for Blow, where many believe the rapper referenced Ka's death. Just hours later, Jamonte Davis, a young aspiring rapper linked to the gang connected to the Bleeders, was also killed in a suspected retaliatory attack. The feud was no longer just about crews. It was personal, public, and deadly.
Well, just a few hours ago, police say they responded to a shooting on West Catalpa Drive where they say one male victim was shot and killed.
Now, by this time, everything had gotten out of hand completely. But in December 2021, the street war reached into the Baton Rouge's rap elite, where Ben 10, one of Youngboy's closest homeboys, and his cousin Marvin Batiste were ambushed while driving. Marvin was killed instantly. Ben 10 survived but was left wounded and marked forever by the attack. You would think that the beef wouldn't get any more light shined on it, but this turned things up a notch or two. Once again, the streets were talking, and what they were saying is that the attack was a clear message from the Bleeders, further escalating the conflict. A rapper affiliated with the Bleedas, 40 Glock U, seemingly bragged about the shooting in his song Gator Pack, adding fuel to the fire. Ben 10 fired back at them publicly, defending his cousin's character and condemning the senseless violence. He'd go online saying that his cousin was a football player, and he ain't even care about being in the game or being in the streets. He said, "You kill somebody like this for real?" The war was no longer just street talk. It was a real fight, impacting families, crews, and careers. And even innocent bystanders and people who were out the way were falling victim to what was going down in the streets. Now things were really getting hot in the streets. And by 2022, the war spilled beyond gunfire and into the digital realm, where Ben 10 and True Bleeda engaged in a public showdown on Clubhouse. The back and forth would have them making accusations about who's really in the streets and who's not. Ben 10 claimed that he had never taken a life questioning True Bleeda's authenticity.
I ain't kill nobody. Stop talking like that, Danny.
While True Bleeda fired back, calling Ben 10 a fake gangster.
Gangsters on my shit, go get a hat. Who you ever shoot?
This exchange exposed the deep animosity between these crews and the personal stakes behind the violence. What started as a street conflict had become a war of words and reputation, a battle fought in the streets and online where respect and survival were equally on the line. The local hip-hop community in Baton Rouge was rocked once again when news broke on June 10th, 2025, that Baton Rouge rapper David Catherine, also known as RealBleeda, was arrested for the 2024 murder of Teressa Calligan. Calligan was a respected educator and community advocate. At the time of his arrest, RealBleeda was already facing multiple gun charges and drug charges, including the May incident where he was caught on video allegedly brandishing a firearm during a confrontation with suspected rival gang members outside the Pecanland Mall in Monroe. Things weren't looking good for True Bleeda, not with this recent news, and his legal troubles had been escalating, culminating in the significant arrest that shocked the local community. Prior to his arrest, RealBleeda made headlines during a live performance where he publicly dissed 4K Trey, a rival faction associated with NBA YoungBoy. This onstage confrontation intensified the already volatile gang tension in Baton Rouge, drawing sharp responses from 4K Trey members and escalating the feud between the Bleedas and all of their adversaries in the streets. Since RealBleeda got locked up, it knocked the wind out of the sails of the Bleedas. Law enforcement started to crack down and pay way more attention, leading to a potential collapse of the Bleedas. Even though co-Bleeda and other Bleeda members are out there still pushing the line, representing them on both fronts in the streets. But right now, with the law looking closely at the Bleedas, things are starting to tighten up for them on the legal side of the game. RealBleeda's legal proceedings drew widespread attention, with Attorney General Liz Morrell publicly condemning the ongoing gang violence and calling for increased efforts to combat such activities. The Baton Rouge community, shaken by the events, engaged in discussions about the root causes of gang involvement and the need for comprehensive solutions to address the issue. The streets of Baton Rouge remain haunted by the echoes of loss and violence. True Bleeda's death was not an isolated tragedy. It marked yet another chapter in a story repeated too often. Fans flood social media with heartfelt tributes, recalling his raw lyricism and the way he gave voice to the struggles of a generation grappling with poverty, violence, and shattered dreams. Online forums like Reddit threads dedicated to Baton Rouge rap are filled with somber reflections. Fans also pay tribute to members of the Vultures like Zip, who lost his life at just 29 years old, and Ka, who was gunned down in cold blood after years of trying to rise above the streets. These losses ripple through the community like waves, a constant reminder of the price paid for survival. The grief stretches beyond music lovers, though. It tears at the very fabric of families and communities. Parents bury their children, siblings lose brothers, and children grow up empty seats at the table. Take the family of Zip, who was a devout father of two. His death left his young children fatherless, his family searching for answers, and in the aftermath of senseless violence. Community leaders speak openly about the emotional toll this cycle of violence takes on families, alongside the economic hardships that come with losing breadwinners in a home or being forced to navigate through dangerous neighborhoods alone without a father. For many families in Baton Rouge, hope feels fragile amid the constant threat of gunfire and loss. These realities are compounded by the systematic issues, neglected schools, lack of jobs, and limited social support that make breaking free seem nearly impossible. If you want to play the drill rap game, it's hard to succeed and rise to the top. True Bleeda was a rising star, a voice for his generation, caught between hope and hardship, cut down in the crossfire of a war not of his making. RealBleeda stepped in to fill that void, carrying the weight of a legacy, only to find the streets ready to choke him too, trapped in a cycle that seems impossible to escape. But these names aren't just entries on a crime report or fleeting posts on social media. It's real-life examples of people who had an opportunity to make it out because of their abilities to rap, and things went the wrong way. They're symbols of potential loss, of communities failed by broken systems, and a city's painful struggle to hold on to greatness amid the violence. And this isn't to paint them as victims or to say that they're victims in any way in this situation. It's just to point out the fact that if you sign up for drill rap or you want to be a real street rapper, you need to know what you're signing up for. And these shining examples also beg the question, how long can Baton Rouge bleed its brightest before it bleeds out completely? That question lingers, haunting, urging us all to reckon with the cost of silence and demand a future where bloodlines don't have to be defined by broken dreams. In the final days of May 2025, Baton Rouge was rocked by a rapid-fire series of arrests that may have spelled the end of the Bleedas gang as the city knows it. Among those taken into custody was 23-year-old David Catherine, better known as RealBleeda, a key figure in the group's rise and defiance. He was charged with second-degree murder in the fatal shooting of 36-year-old Teressa Calligan, an educator and mentor beloved in the community. It happened on Airline Highway on one of Baton Rouge's busiest corridors. Witnesses say Calligan was driving home when she was caught in the middle of a reckless gunfight. She didn't stand a chance. Her car had swerved across lanes and crashed into a sheriff deputy's vehicle. And just like that, another innocent life was extinguished by the crossfire of gang violence. RealBleeda's name was added to a growing list of rappers whose lyrics about pain and power became courtroom evidence of a real-life tragedy. But RealBleeda wasn't the only one. In the hours that followed, authorities moved swiftly to round up more suspects linked to the Bleedas and the shooting that killed Calligan. The case led them to a second arrest and then a third, each one deepening the scope of what the investigators now call a targeted gangland ambush. One of the suspects, Roger Parker, a name already infamous in Baton Rouge, Parker was previously arrested for a drive-by murder of an 8-year-old Dillion Daniels, a case that stunned even veteran officers. That child's murder had gone cold, but the arrest of Parker in connection to the Calligan killing reopened old wounds. It was a sickening pattern, the same names, the same streets, the same senseless bloodshed. By the time the third suspect was taken into custody, it was clear that this wasn't just one shooting. It was the unraveling of a network built on violence, retribution, and loyalty to a lost cause. The Bleedas have been a force in Baton Rouge underground for years. They emerged as a street family bonded by trauma, music, and survival. But now, one by one, their top faces are falling. From the assassination of True Bleeda in 2022 to the courtroom downfall of RealBleeda in 2025, in a matter of days, the gang has gone from defiant to decimated. It might not all be over, but it's not looking good. And for years, they maintained influence through street cred, rap clout, and retaliatory violence. But now, the leadership is behind bars, the movement fractured, and the brand tainted with the blood of civilians. It's one thing to get caught up in the streets and to be shooting back and forth between gangs and known gang members, but once civilians and known reputable members of the community start to lose their life, here comes the full weight of the law. And that spotlight is going to be hard to take off the Bleedas. The streets are quieter now, but it's not peace, it's pause. Families of victims like Calligan and Daniels are relieved, but not comforted. The trauma doesn't end with an arrest. The scars run too deep. In a city where music, violence, and survival are all intertwined, the fall of the Bleedas leaves a vacuum and a choice. Will another generation rise to carry on the same cycle? Or will these arrests finally open a path to something new? Either way, Baton Rouge stands at a crossroads. One gang down, too many more to go. In just 1 week, a wave of violence from years past finally caught up to its architects. The Bleedas, once a symbol of Baton Rouge's underground pride and its relentless drill scene, now find themselves cornered by the very system they raged against. And yet the question still remains, how many more must fall before the cycle finally breaks?